Hello and welcome to another video. On the review table I have the Minichamps scale 118 diecast version of the Mahindra Electro M5 from the ABB Formula-E Season 5. This is the car driven by Belgian Jérôme d'Ambrosio during the 2018-2019 season. Back in 2014 a bunch of ex-Formula 1 drivers would try their luck in the all-new electric Formula-E championship. Established names like Jarno Trulli and Nick Heidfeld joined the likes of Sébastien Buemi, Lucas Di Grassi, Jean-Ric Vergne and many others. Belgian Jérôme d'Ambrosio, a former Formula 1 Marussia and Lotus driver, also joined, signing for Jay Penske's Dragon Racing. He stayed at the outfit for 4 seasons and won 2 races, albeit both times he inherited these wins after the winner on the road, Lucas Di Grassi, was disqualified on both those occasions. The series itself got off to a tentative start, although it didn't prove too popular amongst most diehard racing fans. This kinda changed with the introduction of the Gen 2 car for Season 5. The car was now much more powerful, more exciting to look at, and the batteries could last the whole race now, so no more of that gimmicky car switcheroo during the races. For Season 5, d'Ambrosio moved to the Indian Mahindra Racing team and their relationship got off to a great start with a podium finish in the first race at Diriyah. At the next E-Prix in Marrakesh, d'Ambrosio was running third behind the 2 BMW Andretti Autosport cars of Da Costa and Sims. When both these drivers committed motorsport's cardinal sin and collided battling each other, an opportunistic d'Ambrosio slipped through into the lead. The Belgian held on to the flag and scored his first win on the road. His emphatic celebrations were very infectious to see.
Here comes some donuts! I'm saying it. This is Formula-E.
It's mental.
This is Formula-E. It's absolutely ridiculous. And for the first time, it's the top step of the podium in Formula-E for Jérôme d'Ambrosio.
It proved to be his last win of his career. At the end of the 6th season, d'Ambrosio hung up his helmet and moved into a deputy team principal role at rival team Venturi. Minichamps originally planned on making a full grid of scale 118 Formula E cars from Season 5. Since the series uses a spec chassis, it's not too much work in theory, as all the cars look the same from the outside. In the end, they only did not produce the HWA Race Lab and GX Dragon cars for some reasons, and I think they also didn't do the BMW cars. Anyways, the Nissan models didn't have a driver figurine in the car for some reason. As the models and the series didn't prove too popular at all, Minichamps binned the 118 Formula E cars for future seasons, and those they didn't produce won't be produced anymore either. Lucky for me, Minichamps did make the Season 5 Mahindra of Jérôme d'Ambrosio. I must admit, I did wait until I could find one for a decent price, as I would never have bought it for the retail price of €145. In the end, I paid less than half that price, so it paid off waiting around for it. To the packaging then, and the model comes in this windowed box from Minichamps, and as you can see it's windowed on the sides and on the top as well. Just a generic background, and then all the licensing info on the bottom as usual. When removing the model from the packaging, you'll notice this cradle around it basically. And this is of course to make the box more rigid to protect the model itself, and it's easily removable from the base, as you can see. The base itself then, nothing too special, it's just plastic with a bit of model info and then the Minichamps logo on it. From an overall standpoint, I'd say the model looks rather good. It feels quite solid, the proportions are correct and you can spot some finer details. The car itself looks quite spectacular with these wheel arches at the front and those special sort of bat wings hanging over the rear wheels. And then at the rear of the car there's the big diffuser, which makes for a pretty cool and futuristic looking race car. To give you an idea of its size, here it is next to a 2019 Formula 1 car. It's noticeably less wide than a Formula 1 car, and the overall length is a bit shorter too, but it's actually still more than 5 meters long in real life. And basically it shows you how ridiculously long the Formula 1 cars have become. But first impressions of the model are pretty good, I'd say. Moving on to the cockpit of the model then, and let's first have a look at the helmet. I'd say it's okay looking, not great either. And unfortunately, Minichamps used the early season helmet of Jérôme, which he only used at the first race in Adria. And Ambrosio actually changed his helmet design for the next race at Marrakesh, the race he then won. So this version can sadly not be used as a race-winning model. The halo then looks nice. There's some detailing in it as well. On the top then you have these LEDs which light up when the car is in attack mode or fan boost mode. The figurine then, as you can see, it's pretty bad. Surprisingly, it doesn't have any sponsorship decals or any detailing on it. And I'm a bit puzzled as to why this is the case. I realize that, well, basically with the halo, you can't really see the figurine very well as it's blocking it a bit, but this feels a bit like corner cutting from Minichamps. The same can also be said for the steering wheel. Unfortunately, there's almost no detailing going on there either. And actually the cockpit and the helmet for me is the biggest letdown of this model car, and the more I look at it, the happier I am not having paid full price for this model. Oddly enough, the model does have some finer details. They're just not located in the cockpit area apparently. The front wing of the car is quite simple actually, but yeah, looks good. And it's connected to those wheel arches, those pronounced wheel arches of course. And it's a pretty simple setup, the front wing, with just a single flap, as you can see. And it has this dramatic shape seen from above especially. The wheel arches themselves then are quite interesting. They have some sort of barge board attached to it here, and a connecting beam, supporting beam that's attached to the tub of the car. And the floor of the car also connects to this barge board area. At the back of the car then, the rear wing consists of two Batmobile-like wings coming from the center of the car, attached to these winglets hovering over the rear wheels. On the side pod then, there is also this turning vane, as you can see here with the Pininfarina logo on it. And the whole rear setup of the car is actually quite spectacular to see, with those special wings and the big diffuser as well. The wheels then don't look too bad. The tires, of course, are these spec all-weather tires close to road-going ones, but no slicks on these cars. And all the cars, they use the same 18-inch wheels with a low tire profile. So as you can see, the sidewall of the tires is pretty thin. The sidewalls have a lot of Michelin branding on it, as you can see as well. And as usual, I did some extra handwritten markings to the tires. The wheels then also rotate, and the fronts, they also turn a bit, but not too much, and that's because the arches around the wheels, they limit the motion, the turning motion a lot, and it makes you wonder why Minichamps went through the trouble of adding steering functionality if the wheels can actually barely steer. But yeah, well, they put it on the car for some reason. The brake discs are very visible through those 18-inch rims, and I personally think it's a bit of a shame the brake rotors are that small and not to the size of the inside of the rim, which I think would have looked much better. The rims themselves then are quite simple. They look okay with different color wheel nuts on either side, so red on the left and green on the right. On this car I also really like the Indian flag colors on the edge of the rims, which is typical of the Mahindra cars of course. So yeah, the wheels are very nicely replicated by Minichamps, I'd say. On to the smaller details then, and let's first have a look at the suspension. It has carbon texturing in the plastic, which doesn't look too bad. I like the driver's name on the upper wishbone as well, and then the brake ducts look pretty good too. The top of the tub then has clear body panel lines and a small antenna on it, and a few more detailing decals. On the roll hoop then you have the typical camera pod, and these two emergency red pulling cables, which actually look really nice. So I have one on each side, of course. And further down the back there's these two holes. I'm not sure what they do, but I believe it's connected to the batteries of the car. The side pods then are nicely sculpted and quite hidden and a bit integrated in the shape of the car. The floor underneath the car looks nice with carbon detailing, and it is connected to these wheel arches as I mentioned before. The shape of the driver protection on the top of these side pods is quite interesting as well. And then yeah, the boomerang-like winglet in the front of the rear wheels we already mentioned. The diffuser then looks really nicely sculpted, and with a carbon fiber detailing on it, and same goes for the triangular crash structure as well, with a rear light in it. So yeah, the model does have some finer details. Shame they didn't do the same level of detail for the cockpit. On to the positives and the negatives. On the positive side, for me, it's the overall look of the model. Minichamps did a solid job on it, I think. The proportions look right, and they nailed the dramatic look of the car. Then there are some smaller details that are very good, like these pull rings that I showed. The wheels are also very nicely done, and the whole rear of the car and the diffuser is very nice too. On the negative side, I'd say the cockpit is of course a bit big letdown. The helmet is not entirely correct, but still acceptable. But the lack of detailing to the figurine and the steering wheel is actually quite disappointing. And I feel like a simple decal for the driver figurine and steering wheel would have made a whole world of difference. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. So a quick edit here about something that I noticed whilst making this video. And yeah, this is my little Ambrosio collection, by the way, with his Formula 1 shoes and his half-scale helmet. But yeah, a thing that I noticed is that the outline of the diffuser should have been red, as you can see now here. So I corrected it with the red paint marker. But yeah, it's quite distinctive, and I can't believe Minichamps have missed that. To make matters worse, actually, Minichamps did it correctly on the 1/43 scale version of this model. And it's so typical of Minichamps to do it correctly on one version and then, well, screw it up on another one. And it's not that they didn't know that it should have been there, because you saw it on the 1/43 scale, but yeah, it's such a typical Minichamps thing to do. So to conclude, I'd say it's a bit of a shame Minichamps won't be producing the 118 Formula-E cars anymore. They could have done so for the bigger teams still, and the Champions cars at least, since it's still the same car until next year, but apparently they just won't make them. I guess the lack of popularity for the series as a whole and the bad sales figures just doesn't make it viable for Minichamps well, to produce these model cars anymore. Which is a bit of a shame, as I said, as the model really stands out in my collection. In the end, Minichamps did a solid job, I think, apart from the cockpit then, of course. Given that I bought mine for around €70, I say it's acceptable, but I would never have paid full retail for it though, even though I really wanted to have this car in my collection. So yeah, this was my review of this Minichamps 118 Mahindra Electro M5 Formula-E car of Belgian Jérôme d'Ambrosio. I'd like to thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, check out the other videos as well, leave a like, and hopefully I'll see you soon in the next one.